I thought I would never have enough space to make mixed media art, but I decided to make space. A few years ago, I was really into making collages until I ran out of space for my collage papers. So I stopped making collage papers and eventually stopped making collage and focused on watercolor, which takes up a lot less space. But I really want to get back into collage and gel printing. So I turned this small cabinet in the corner of my dining room into my mixed media art station. I have everything I need in here for gel printing and making collages. This cabinet is right next to my dining table where I like to gel print at the end of the table because then I can use the rest of the table to lay out my prints to dry. I don't have space to leave my supplies out. This is the only table in our house and it's where we eat every meal. So I needed everything to be as easy as possible to set up and clean up. So everything in here is in bins or some sort of container that's easy to pull out and take to the table. Let me bring you in closer and show you every single thing that's inside this cabinet. If you don't have a lot of space for art supplies either, I hope this will inspire you to carve out some space, even if it's small. First, let me pull out this roll of freezer paper, which I use to cover the end of my dining table. I also have a package of baby wipes here that I use to clean up when I'm gel printing. Over on this side, I have a lot of texture tools that I use for making collage papers. In this box, I have little pieces of bubble wrap and plastic canvas, some homemade foam stamps, a little silicone mold, more homemade foam stamps and bubble wrap, clothespins, Nerf dart, rubber bands, other things that I can use for textures and mark making. Someone shipped candy to us and this box had a blue interior, so I just flipped it inside out and taped it to make this container. This other box is full of tea bag papers. So when I drink tea, I dry the tea bags and save all of the papers to use in collage or for printing on. I have a bookend here just to separate this stuff and so that these don't fall over. These little cases have stuff I can use to make textures on the gel plates. So this first one is grids and linear tools. So I have things in here like a little piece of shelf liner. These hexagon pieces are like for cake decorating, but they're great for making textures. And then I have a bunch of different shapes of these plastic canvases. I love stamping these on the gel plate. And they come in all different kinds of sizes and shapes. This next one is my punchinella. So punchinella is the sequin waste from the ribbon material that they punch sequins out of. So this is like your typical circular sequins. These come in all kinds of different shapes. And I just ordered a pack from someone on Etsy and they're wrapped in tissue because they can get tangled up really easily. But these are really fun to use on the gel plate. Next up is netting. So I save different types of fruit netting and mesh bags to use on the gel plate. So this is like from onions, apples, that kind of stuff. This is just like a mesh laundry bag. I really like these little cases for keeping stuff like this neat and contained. These two little presentation binders hold my stencils and masks. So I have been cutting stencils for myself using my small Cricut Joy machine. So that's what's in this binder, is all just different stencils that I've cut for myself. And when you cut them yourself, you can actually keep the pieces that come out of the stencil. So I have those in an envelope in there too, because you can throw those on the gel plate as well. And I've recently started cutting some of my own masks. These I've cut by hand to use on the gel plate. So I've just drawn them out first and then cut them out. And these little books are just great to slide them in and keep them all organized. I have a plastic dessert plate in here because I love this radial pattern on the gel plate. And I have a small 8x8-inch sketchbook in here for collage studies. I've just started working in this small sketchbook, doing some studies, experimenting with collage and negative painting. Over on this side, I have my smaller tools. This jar is my gluing jar. I have all of the brushes that I use for gluing, silicone brushes, a palette knife, and a bone folder, which I find useful for putting down collage pieces. And this is obviously a recycled jar, but I use it for water when I'm gluing, so I don't mind if it gets messy. These are silicone lids that I stole from my kitchen. I don't use them in the kitchen anymore. They've become art supplies. I use them as a palette because if I put glue or paint on them, it's really easy to peel it off and clean them when I'm done. This pencil holder has all of my scissors and cutting tools, cutter bee, little Fisker snips, X-Acto knives, and hole punches. These two clear divided bins I also took from my kitchen. I tried not to buy any new organizing supplies for this cabinet because I want to save my money to buy art supplies. So I just kind of gathered up whatever I could from around the house. These hold my brayers in the front. I don't put anything else in those trays. And then they slide out easily. So this one has all of my paints in it, and I can slide this out and take it over to the dining table. This other bin has gesso and matte medium and my catalyst wedge, which I love for collage. I also have some Liquitex matte medium and Liquitex gloss medium. And I have a small spray bottle, which I like to use to clean off my gel plate. This bottom shelf is where I'm storing all of my papers. So when I set this up, it was really important to me to have equal space for unprinted papers and finished collage papers that are ready for collage. In the past, when I made a bunch of collage papers, I didn't have a good way to store or organize them, so they just ended up in one big messy stack. With this setup, in theory, even if I printed all of these papers, I would have room to store them over here. And these shelves are organized by color, which makes it a lot more functional. These two units are from IKEA and they fit really well in this cabinet, which is only about 12.5 inches deep. But these trays fit 9 by 12 inch paper perfectly, which is the size of my newest gel plate. So that was really important to me. I had these somewhere else in the house and I brought them together to use here. So on this side, I have all my unprinted papers, and on this side, I have papers that are ready for collage. On the top of these units is where I'm storing my gel plates. So nothing gets set on top of them. I have my large 9 by 12 inch gel plate here, and it is on a piece of plexiglass, so I can just pull this out and take it over to the table for printing. I also have a smaller 8 by 10 inch gel plate, which is what I started with and still works great, but it doesn't print to the edges of, 8.5 by 11 inch paper. So I had all these white borders on my papers and I decided I wanted to print larger at a 9 by 12 inch size. So on this side is all of my papers that I can use for printing with the gel plate. So this top shelf is rice papers, and I try to keep these somewhat in their package because all rice papers behave differently on the gel plate, and it's important to know which type you're working with. So this one is the sketch paper, And I bought the pack that comes in 12 by 18 inch size, and then I just cut the sheets in half so that they're 9 by 12. This one is Art Advantage rice paper, which is my favorite, but I don't think they make it anymore. And then I have been experimenting with some less expensive rice papers from Daiso. So this one I have found is really good for gel printing. And I have another one that I've cut into smaller sizes because I like this for another technique called suminagashi. A lot of these rice papers are actually longer than 12 inches, so I have trimmed them down and cut an inch off, and I've just kept the strips back here so that I can fit them in these trays. This next shelf just has white copy paper and brown packing paper that I've cut to 9 by 12 inch size. On the next shelf down, I have wet strength tissue paper. This comes in 21 by 27 inch size, and I just cut it in quarters, and the sheets are folded in half in here. With tissue paper, it's good to have a little space around the gel plate to pull the tissue paper off. Then I also have sewing pattern papers in here, which can be fun for collage and printing. And I have just some regular gift tissue paper. This piano music book was such a good find at my library thrift store for $1, and it has over 150 pages. And I found out this paper prints incredibly well. And so I have been using this a lot, and the papers are just over 9 by 12 inch size. So I love this. I always check my library to see if they have things like this. On this shelf, I also keep a box with other vintage papers, some more music papers, dictionary pages, postcards, library card catalog cards, and just a mishmash of vintage papers that would be good for printing on. I have some more delicate vintage papers over here that aren't great for printing on, so I keep those in a separate spot for collage. All of these trays pull out completely, except for there is no tray at the bottom, so I'm storing something else down there. This is where I'm storing my collage papers that are ready to use in collages. I have these organized by color, but there's only 4 shelves here, so I've come up with a system that I think works well for me. This bottom shelf has neutral papers, whites, blacks, Payne's gray. The next shelf has pink and warm tones, any papers that are multicolor. Then these top 2 are the ones I will probably use the most because they're green and blue. So this one has all my blue papers. You can already see I've been printing a ton of blue papers since I set this up. And here I have a space for green papers. What I love about these IKEA units, besides the fact that they perfectly hold 9 by 12 inch papers, is that these trays slide completely out. So I can take all of these papers over to the table when I'm working on collage. On the bottom here, like I said, there is no pull-out shelf. So I'm using these bottom sections to store larger texture tools for the gel plate. So on the bottom shelf here is all of my bubble wraps. So giant bubble wrap, square bubble wrap, mini bubble wrap, which is really fun to print with, normal bubble wrap. I save all kinds of different bubble wrap. On this side, I have more texture tools. This case has some of my masks that I've cut out, some more of that cake decorating hexagon sheets, lace to try on the gel plate. This is a silicone trivet, and I cut the edge off so I can print with this hexagon pattern on the gel plate, and some cardboard pieces for printing. Then I have some more texture stuff. I have a large circular plastic canvas that has been getting a lot of love. One of my stencils that I hand cut. So it is very imperfect and makes awesome patterns on the gel plate. An old cutting board with a grid pattern on the back. These are anti-slip rug mats, just a grid, and then I cut one on the diagonal to get that pattern too. A large 9x12 plastic grid, larger piece of cardboard, and I just got these sink mats from Daiso to try on the gel plate, and some doilies to try on the gel plate. I positioned these units in the center of the cabinet so that I could pull the trays all the way out without them hitting the door here, because these cabinet doors don't open any further than this. That left me a few inches on each side for additional storage. On this side, I'm using it to store vintage books and papers. So this one is flowering trees and shrubs. It's got some index pages and some cool charts that I could print on. This one is a college typewriting book. I have another book from the library thrift store that has music paper. And this is just a package of more vintage papers that seem a little too frail to use on the gel plate for printing, but I will use them in collage. On the door of the cabinet, I used Velcro to attach 2 bulldog clips so that I can clip papers up on the door. So these papers, as you probably can tell, are brayer roll-off sheets or collage papers that just didn't work out and could use a little something extra, or just a place to clean my brayer. I like hanging them here so I don't forget to use them and I don't mix them in with my other collage papers. So what's hanging here is always changing based on my printing. Any papers that aren't ready to go into my finished collage papers can just get clipped back up here to use for my next printing session. Over on this side, I also have a few inches of storage here on the side. So I have some foam sheets in here for making homemade stamps. I also keep my pad of Yupo paper in here, which is what I use to cut out stencils and masks. I have a world atlas that has lots of index pages and charts that I can turn into collage paper. And I have this polar grid paper, which could be fun to print on. On this door, I have 2 more bulldog clips that I attached with Velcro for hanging up papers, and I'm using this side for my acrylic paint swatches. I still consider myself a beginner at gel printing, so my idea here was to have all of my different color options. I can actually use these swatches behind my gel plate and see what would look good in the background of the print. That is the other reason I have my gel plate on a piece of plexiglass. This mixed media station has been a total game changer for me. I love it. I've been using it daily. It's so easy to access my supplies now. If you have limited storage space too, I hope I've given you some ideas to make more space for your art supplies.